or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the Masterclass, the Tactical Podcast. I'm your host, Haider Rubbani. Manchester United have just won 1-0 against West Ham United. A massive victory, Rob, for second place, really. You know, that was much needed win. Leicester winning 5-0. Not the prettiest performance, but at this stage, we just need to get the 3 points on the board. So how are you? Welcome back. And what were your thoughts on tonight?
Well, pretty performances don't get you 4 points. So what matters now is winning. So if you win and it's not pretty, you still get 3 points. And that's all that really matters. I think today, this game, it was really kind of centered around as much as what West Ham wanted to do, as much as what Manchester United wanted to do. West Ham came, they parked the bus. I think that was quite obvious they were going to do that when we saw the team sheet. It was going to be kind of 3-5-2, even less than that, people dropping even deeper. And we all know that Manchester United's kryptonite, as I tweeted, is the low block. Why? Because they're not technical enough. They don't move the ball quick enough. And that's something that we know is endemic of this United side. But credit to them, when they got the goal, it changed the game. I think obviously when West Ham came forward a little bit more, Manchester United could play in transition. And really, United probably should have had a second or a third on the weight of play and the chances that they had. But a really good 3 points, especially after Leicester collected their 3 points earlier in the day. All Manchester United have to do now is keep winning. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, you know, you're kind of heart pumping out your chest because you saw a beautiful Rabona that ends up in the back of the net, but then you lose. Those things don't really matter. What matters is winning, and 1-0 is always good enough.
Nice little dig at Jose Mourinho there, Rob.
That wasn't a dig. That wasn't a dig. That was not a dig. That's just facts.
No, it's true. Look, it wasn't pretty today. Let's be honest. I wasn't expecting anything other than what we saw today. I thought West Ham would come with a little bit more impetus. I thought they'd be a bit more adventurous. You know, they've been really good this year. You can definitely see they miss Jess Lingard. He links, you know, the midfield with attack. He buzzes around. He's been really integral for them. So I think that was first and foremost one of the massive bonuses for Manchester United, not to have to deal with Jesse. I'm sure he probably would have, Sodsley would have scored against us. But looking at you know, the starting lineup, 4-2-3-1 as usual. We had McFred, Lindelof with Maguire at the back, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw. And then you had the front three. So Marcus was called fit. He didn't look fit to me, Rob, if I'm being honest with you. He looked off the pace. Understandable. And then you had Mason up at number 9 and Dan James in the front three. And today, United dominated possession and territory as expected, really. As you mentioned, United needing to move the ball better. I think what we saw today was United still lack progressive passes in the team, especially from deep, which we've spoken about many, many times. Shaw and Bruno being the ones really that are probably the best progressive passes that we've got at the moment. But one player in particular that stood out to me, Rob, was Mason Greenwood. Now, he's been a player who's had probably a difficult season. He hasn't hit the heights in terms of his goal scoring tally that he had last season. He was fantastic, wasn't he, in that regard? But he was really, really dangerous today. He looks like his all-round game's improved. He's definitely improved his creativity. You saw that ball to Marcus off the right. That's a big part of his game that's improved, and that's from playing on the right-hand side. He looks like his hold-up play is improving. He looks sharp. He looks confident. He just needs a goal, doesn't he, really? I mean, that Fabianski save was brilliant, but Mason's coming on leaps and bounds now, and I think Oli can now rely on him to be a number 9. I know it might be a bit early to say starting week in, week out, but he's a player for me that Oli can now turn to, and it's an extra option at number 9. And with Cavani out injured and Martial, there's no reason why he can't take that spot from now to the end of the season with 9 games to go in the league.
I think for Mason, the last thing he needs to worry about at the moment is scoring. So when he's playing as a number 1, of course, you want your striker to score. And I think you saw today he went really close. 2 or 3 really good opportunities, obviously hit the post as well. But like you said, you're absolutely right. He looked dangerous today. The effort was there. He was dialed in. He did all sorts of things today that I think fans generally miss. And what I mean by that is not in case of education or knowledge of the game or any of those kind of things, but it's about doing all the dirty work that brings everyone else into the game. So I tweeted at half time that one of the good things that Mason was doing was that he was playing the channels really well, both sides. He wasn't just going to his favoured right-hand side, he was going into the left. The issue for United's attack in those moments was actually Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. Why? Because they have to take that central channel when Mason goes wide. Now, that's the modern game. So when you think about it, when Martial plays there, Martial kind of will definitely always go to the left, never goes to the right, which is easier to defend against. And what we're seeing here, I think, is something that long-term now needs to be solved about second-man runners. Now, of course, we know that Donny van de Beek is a second-man runner, so you could bring him into the team. However, he's not doing all the other things which get you in the picture. But I think it was great today for Mason, you know, going into those channels, making those runs. Some of his qualities on the ball, deliveries into the box were fantastic. Some players on our team need to learn that. Mason can do that already as a teenager. And I do think that that's the kind of ultimate answer when you talk about chemistry. If you don't have a number 9 that scores you 30 goals a year, you're Haaland or someone like that, someone who's going to be your Lewandowski or someone who's just generally always dangerous. You need a number 9 that can do a little bit of everything, go into the channels and actually help your teammates. So that was great today. I think with Mason, it is about runs of games. So we don't know how long Martial's out for. We don't know really Cavani's availability. He seems to be kind of, it's got a knock and seems to be not quite there, but might be. There's plenty of opportunity to get Mason minutes in this position, even if it's not that he's starting Haider. It doesn't have to start as the 9 every week. It just means that when you go into rotation, you maybe kind of, there's a player that's injured or tired. Today, obviously, as you said, Marcus definitely looks like he's a little bit laboured. But with the importance of the result, you couldn't really take any of your main players off. You're relying on them to get you over the line. In weeks to come, there will be scenarios where you can still play Mason Greenwood as the 9. And that opens it up for Ole. So what you're seeing is Ole's projecting for the future happening in the present. So he's looking at Mason and he's thinking, right, I want Mason to be a number 9. Let's see if the boy can actually do some of that. Because then it means that on the right-hand side, if you don't bring in a Sancho or someone like that, you've got Ahmed, you know, you've got James, who's now showing that he can at least play in this team. Whether people rate him or not, that's a different matter. But it was good. And I think the thing is today with United, the balance wasn't quite there in the attack. I think Bruno, he gets an assist. He gives the ball away so much. If he wasn't getting these numbers with goals and assists, I would be saying, is it time to drop him? Because he gives the ball away so often. Even at the end there, I think in the final moments, he dilly-dallies. He gets caught by Rice. It wasn't a foul. It gets given because he sells it. He's very lucky. That could have been a breakaway and West Ham might have scored. But he does it a lot. And it's not something I want to kind of dwell on because this week Manchester United won and there's no need to dwell on those bad points. But it is concerning because I look at that and I think, well, if you're not scoring goals in the future and weeks and months to come, then you kind of have to look at it and say, well, what do you actually do? Bruno Fernandes needs to play higher up the pitch. I want him to be the second man runner. I want him to be in the box. I want him scoring goals and worrying about that and not necessarily dropping 50, 60, 70 yards to go and get the ball of McTominay or Fred. Would it be nice to have some ball players in there today? Like you said, a Pogba would have been invaluable in this kind of game, but we haven't. So you have to play with what you've got. And I think we did okay. The tactics were fine. No issues with 4-2-3-1. I think McTominay and Fred were split. You had McTominay pushing up a little bit more, doing all the work against Rice. And Rice, a player obviously United fans really like. Did he do enough today for me to say that he's better than Scott McTominay? Well, he probably is better than Scott McTominay, but I'm not sure he's £80 million better than Scott McTominay, which is kind of the price that you'll be looking at, 60 to 80.
Yeah, I do want to touch quickly, Rob, on the Bruno point. I mean, there's a comment here saying it doesn't help. There's a lack of movement from the players ahead of him. That's the big thing I've noticed. And we can go on to United against low block teams, because we saw last week, look, you play Manchester City and we can tear them to shreds, or any team to shreds on the counter. We're fantastic in transition. It seems to suit the makeup of our squad. Then you look at today, and it was obvious that we were going to dominate territory. We were going to dominate possession, which is what we did. And there was a lack of movement, off the ball movement. And it's not a problem that is new to us. It's something that we see quite a lot. There's not enough players, looking for pockets of space. There's not enough players sort of drifting out wide, running in behind, coming short. And I do think while Bruno has been not at the level we expect from him over the last maybe couple of months, I do think, and you did touch on it, with McTominay and Fred behind him, neither of them are the sort of players that are going to dictate possession. They're not the sort of players that are going to look to pick out passes. I do feel like he drops back because of those two. When Pogba was playing, I know Pogba's injured, but we did find that Bruno had a bit more time on the ball. He seemed to stay further up a little bit more. So I do think that it's not all of Bruno's fault, but I think that the fact that he's got McFred behind him, I think that does contribute to why it's difficult. But I do think that Ollie perhaps needs to tell him, stay where you are. I think this free roll that he's getting is a little bit too much of a free roll. It does sometimes disrupt the balance. I feel like he gets into positions where, he shouldn't be, like you say, should be getting in the box. So it's quite a bit of a dilemma, but I do think that once you get someone like Pogba behind him or someone of that ilk, I think you will see him looking forward rather than looking to come back and collect the ball.
I think that he doesn't actually have a free role per se in the team. So a kind of trequarista, wandering number 10. I don't think he really has that. Why is that? Because he doesn't really turn up in those pockets like you just mentioned there. He doesn't really turn up in the channels or kind of on the wing or something like Juan Mata would do when he plays as a 10. He'd kind of just naturally go in those areas. What we tend to see is that he drops deep because he wants to come and collect the ball. It's kind of, as I said in previous shows, the Wayne Rooney effect. Wayne Rooney used to do exactly the same thing when he played as a 10. He was like, I'm going to come 50 yards to get the ball because that's what I want to do. And he wasn't playing in a free role either. He was playing as a number 10 and playing as a forward. I think the issue with Bruno, and you were just saying there, you highlighted McTominay and Fred. Yes, McTominay and Fred are not the best passers of the ball, but the issue is not the ball from McTominay and Fred to Bruno. The issue is Bruno and the ball to someone else. So that's why I highlight it. That's why I say this is a Bruno problem and not a problem with everyone else. So when, Paul Pogba's in there, World Cup winner, world-class midfielder, and he's got the ball, there might be a little bit more faith as in the pick and pop in midfield. You might play more 1-2s. You might get on the front foot a little bit more. But I think in these scenarios, Bruno Fernandes has to take responsibility for himself. So, and I think he tries to. It's not that he's reneging responsibility or trying to be a maverick or any of those kind of things. But at the end of last season, he was interviewed and he said something very specific. And he said, the manager, obviously Ole, has told me not to run around so much, to conserve my energy and to concentrate playing in the final third. However, that's not like how I want to play. That's not what I do. Now, we know the Bruno Fernandes we're seeing now is exactly the one we saw at Sporting. It's the same thing. He would be all over the place. He'd come and pick the ball up deeper. The difference is that in the Premier League, if you pick the ball up deep and you play a bad ball, you're going to get punished. You might not get punished in Portugal. So this is the issue, I think, and this is the kind of long-term outlook for Manchester United as to what does Ole do to correct this? What does Bruno do to correct this? I do think the correction has to be that Bruno either plays as a false 9, so then you do play Mason slightly wider and you play Bruno through the middle, and that's his role, and he's told that, and that's obvious. Or he plays it like he should do, and that he just plays higher up the pitch and he waits for that 10, 15, 20-yard ball from McTominay and Fred, and they can play it. They might not be technically the most blessed footballers, but they can play 20-yard balls to feet. They're not complete, imbeciles. Yeah, they do give the ball away. But as I said today, the issue is Bruno giving the ball away. And this has been the issue maybe repetitively for months and months and months and months. Had this been 0-0 with 10 minutes to go, I wouldn't have said to myself, right, what we need is Bruno Fernandes dropping deep to get this ball and get United ticking. That's not what I'd have thought. That's not how I thought it was panning out. But I do think with Bruno, it's potentially an issue if you stop winning games. So when United were in that run of, 3 wins out of 10, and everyone was banging on Ole's door and saying, Ole, your tactics are this, that, or the other. For me, it was more about the prime players, the prime candidates. It was Rashford, it was Bruno. It was about their performance levels and whether they were tired, how they could reproduce kind of their best, and so forth. I think with Bruno today, it wasn't really tiredness. Again, it's just bad decisions. That last minute there, with 2 minutes to go, if you've got Declan Rice up your backside, get rid of that ball quickly. Yeah, don't stand on it and spin on it. Pogba used to do that, and people used to get very, very upset with him and they'd call him all sorts of names. Yet Bruno does it, and people don't really say a lot.
Yeah, that's very fair. Rob, let's move on to Luke Shaw today. Look, every single week we're talking about Luke Shaw. Another fantastic performance straight away from the off. What I'm so impressed with, Rob, is, and I just didn't think he had it in him. I said this at the beginning of the season. I know you said that he was a player that you expected to surprise a few on Usman's podcast. But look, Luke Shaw driving forward. It's been really good to watch. Like his development over this season, so direct and quick. He has this kind of pace that I didn't think he had in him anymore after that leg break. He had the strength to hold off the opposition as well, fullback as well. I believe it's Kufal. And then you see him get a cross off. And he did that a few times tonight. He, for me, throughout that game was actually Manchester United's most attacking player, or everything good was coming through him. Another great performance, Rob. What can we say about Shaw? Because we're running out of superlatives for him. I mean, what can he do to get even better? Maybe add assists to his game, but you need people to get on the end of the ball as well and get into good positions. We put in quite a few crosses tonight, and I was thinking, possibly imagine if Cavani or someone was playing like that, and we could have maybe got people on the end of it. I think that's one area maybe where Mason probably faltered tonight, was not getting into the right areas to get on the end of these crosses. But apart from that, I mean, I thought Shaw was another fantastic performance.
I think there's plenty more we can say about Luke Shaw, because the story of Luke Shaw at Manchester United is a long and checkered one. And we can kind of look at kind of matching points as to why we are where we are now with him. Luke Shaw has started to play the game up here in his head. Luke Shaw no longer cares about what's going on around him. Luke Shaw doesn't think, is Harry Maguire slow? Do I have to cover him? Luke Shaw doesn't think, oh, right, here we are in the kind of later stages of the game. Do I need to kind of dilly-dally on the ball? Do I need to kind of slow things? He doesn't think like that anymore. He thinks, I'm the best fullback on this pitch. I can hurt the opponent and I'm going to hurt them. Simple. The game is simple. Play it in a simple fashion. Play to your strengths. This is what Luke Shaw has done and transformed. He's always been fit, but he's now kind of gone on to that next level of fitness. And what I mean by that is straight line speed. So he gets the ball, and even if he doesn't get the ball, he says, well, my job is to overlap, so I'm off. I'm off. See you later, everyone behind me. This is my job. Yeah, I don't need to think about what you lot are doing. I don't need to think, Harry, behind me, you're dead slow, and so's Victor next to you. My job is to go that way. And when I get the ball that way, you bet I'm going to be productive. So that's great, because it helps with your shape. And this is why Luke Shaw was man of the match today, because he was one of the guys pushing the envelope, getting United up the pitch. And to be absolutely 100% frank, he has been doing it game after game after game. The kind of United fans that went after him last season, who were saying that he was overweight and useless and had no chance and all of this, it kind of is a little bit like pushing their face into the kind of proverbial pie, isn't it? Because he's playing at such an elite level now. He's playing at a level where he would get in any team in the world. That's how good he is at the moment. And he's deserving these big ups. You should absolutely big up these kind of performances. If we had 11 Luke Shaws, kind of the old way of putting it when someone's playing well, you would win the league, because it's all about mentality. And I think Luke Shaw's mentality is elite now. I think he's shown that he's a world-class left back, and now he needs to sustain it. This needs to carry on next year and the year after that. The big concern with Luke, of course, is fitness. Can he stay fit for prolonged periods of time? At the moment, we're saying yes. He's had a couple of knocks, but nothing out of the kind of usual. He's not been out for long spells. But the good thing is that when he has been out and come back into the team, either rested or rotated or because he's got a knock, nothing changes. It's the same Luke Shaw, the one that we like, the one that fans have to respect. I'm really pleased for him. I think he's the best player at the club at the moment. For me, he's the player of the season. I know Bruno, as I said, will be the guy that gets plaudits because of the numbers. There's no doubt that, again, Bruno takes a corner today, it ends up on someone's head and it goes into the back of the net. Whether that assist goes to him or not doesn't really matter. He's the guy that's made the play, so that's why Bruno gets plaudits. But for me, Luke Shaw has helped and aided United's shape. The best way you could say it today, Haider, was you could see what was going on the opposite side, what the problem was. And that was Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who I think has played better in the last few months, last month or two, improved performances, more energy, kind of more focused. Today, when he was playing against a low block, didn't have the foggiest, didn't have a clue what to do, couldn't get behind, couldn't help Dan James. Dan James was
attention, Rob, either, or the touch.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the touch. He doesn't really have the kind of the kind of what I would call the long wave kind of view of the game. You know, he doesn't think three passes in front. He thinks one pass behind. You know, that's how his brain is kind of wired. He's a defender, but a defender who has also got attacking upside because he's got pace, he can get round, but he doesn't really do it because it's either he's not confident or doesn't have maybe the football intelligence in that moment. Whereas Luke Shaw is the opposite. Luke Shaw absolutely has that intelligence and is now kind of adding confidence to his game. So that's a real kind of a point for Ole to, in the summer, really think about, because yes, I think he'll probably strengthen right back. He'll find someone, not necessarily a 50-60 million pound right back, but someone
like
who's
maybe, or someone like that. Yeah, Aaron.
Trippier, not my favorite. Aaron's is much more, I think, more likely because of price and style. You know, he's an attacking fullback. He can get assists. Obviously, you know, he's a player that many clubs want. Bayern Munich are really hot on him, and he could end up there. But that's the kind of, again, these are things for Ole to think about now going forward. Certainly, he's got his new contract now. Ole, you'd expect it to be at the club next season. There isn't really a challenge in terms of coaching for someone who can come into the team like that if United wanted to make a change. And it's all about building. United need to keep building this project now and going forward. And I feel good about it. When I look at the players we've got, they're not always the most exciting. They're not always making the correct decisions. And yes, there's still things wrong, but there's also a lot of things that are right. Today, Manchester United win this game 1-0. If this game was at the start of the season, in the first 10 games of the season, United probably draw or lose this, like the Palace game, you know, where they couldn't really change things in that first game. They didn't really have the impetus or the tempo. I think the good thing was today is that he got a goal from a set piece, which I thought was fantastic, you know, because we are so bad from corners, both ends of the pitch. So I felt really good about that. But then United controlled matters a little bit more. They let West Ham obviously do what they wanted to do. But overall on the front foot, it was a decent performance. I just wish I'd got a second goal because I probably deserved it.
Yeah, I agree. Look, job done as well. I do want to say there's a lot of comments as well about Harry Maguire. He had a really good game as well. Solid, and defense was solid today. Didn't have much to do. No shots by West Ham in the first half, but Maguire did get on the end of a lot of blocks as well. And I thought he had a good game. And yeah, he deserves credit as well and a shout out as well. Rob, let's move on to some questions, guys. Get all your questions in. Thank you for your interaction tonight. You know, an important result. One here from Gerard, and it says, do we need a better pass from the double pivot against the lower teams, or don't play two DMs? I kind of want to twist that a little bit, Rob, and I want to pose it in the sense of breaking down low blocks. Because I think that's something that we've seen time and time again. It's something United have improved this season, because last season we dropped a lot more points against these lower sides. But it is still a problem. And I think looking at it, look, we know there's two ways to do that. You know, you can play with width, or you try and play through them. We said before that it's difficult for United to play through because they don't have the players to play that one-touch football. You know, and I think in the wide areas we saw today, like you mentioned earlier, a lack of balance. I felt like there wasn't enough going down the right. A lot came down the left. This idea that United play two DMs, I don't really subscribe to that. I think that it's perhaps misunderstood that just because you play 4-2-3-1, you're playing two deep players. I think it's just the fact that McTominay and Fred aren't perhaps the most progressive on the ball, and it might come across like that. But what would you be, you know, sort of saying to the team to do? Because it is a problem that's coming up, and I feel like if you manage to nullify Bruno Fernandes, if you manage to close the passing lanes towards him, and you cut off the supply to him, I think it's quite easy to stop Manchester United, and then you're able to put your game onto them.
Absolutely. But again, I'll just reiterate what I said a minute ago. The supply to Bruno Fernandes today was not cut off. Bruno Fernandes had plenty of the ball in all of the positions that you might want him to have it, you know, whether it's him dropping deep or going wide or kind of playing as a number 10 or in and around the box. He had loads of it today. So the issue really was what Bruno was doing with the ball at his feet, not when the ball was coming to him. I think there's also a misconception, like you're saying there, 4-2-3-1 does not mean you're playing with two central defensive midfielders. Fred and McTominay might play deeper at times, but they're not really your classical, what I would call Kante kind of central defensive midfielders. They're not really either a Carrick screener where they're coming to screen the defense and look after in a what would be a kind of 4-1-4-1 maybe formation, and they're also not kind of just doing what Matic would do, which would almost be like a third centre back at times, slipping back into the centre channel, allowing maybe Maguire to go further left and Lindelof to go further right. So that's not really what we saw today. Certainly wasn't two defensive midfielders. They were playing very much split, and you had McTominay was playing more as a number 8 going that way, and you were having Fred, who was maybe more of a number 6, but also still being relatively progressive. Now, as you said there, not great at passing the ball. We know this. But the problem with Manchester United, and this is how I look at it, it's passing the ball everywhere, every position. That's what you've got to get better at. So when my world-class attacking midfielder who's got me 20 goals and 20 assists and man of the match awards coming out of his ears can't pass a ball, I do feel worried. That's what worries me more. When Scott McTominay can't pass the ball, gives it away, I'm not worried because it's not particularly his overall function. His overall function is to work hard and to lay the ball off and give it to people who can play. Now, that's the balance in a team. Is that, yes, I would love Pogba in there. Yes, I would love someone who's a better ball player in there in the pivot. But that's not the problem. That's not what's stopping United being better against a low block. The pivot today was quite high up. And that's because when United have played these games, and we saw it against Chelsea, and we saw it also against City, they've taken a really high line. So they're being brave. It's a coaching decision. The centre-backs are pushing as high up as they can, which allows your fullbacks to go. Yeah, the fullbacks don't need to stay level. They go and play that end of the pitch. And your double pivot kind of almost supports Bruno. So Bruno doesn't have to come too deep. But when he turns his back to the goalkeeper and he's facing his own team, he's then got these two players to work with. Now, the issue is not the out ball from the pivot to Bruno. The issue is when Bruno gets the ball and gives it away. The issue is when Marcus gets the ball and gives it away. The issue is when Dan James gets the ball and gives it away.
Wan-Bissaka as well was...
The issue is when Wan-Bissaka pushes forward and gives the ball away. The issue is when Mason gives the ball away. And I think actually Mason was quite good today. So we can't highlight that. However, we have said that about Anthony Martial at times when he drops in, goes to that left-hand side and gives the ball away. These are endemic issues that keep going round and round at Manchester United. So it's those positions that we've got to fix it in. So you've either got to task these guys and make sure that they can do it better, or you kind of say to them, right, now we go and buy people that might be able to do this job better than what you can. So these are kind of the big philosophical questions that Ole's going to have to answer over the summer about whether he trusts these guys to get better and to keep the ball at that end of the pitch. One thing I really want to highlight, and I think people probably might not have realised this. They might have done. It'll be interesting to see if we see anything in the comments. In the 90th minute, again, the ball goes up to Marcus Rashford. He heads it up in the air. He turns. He's facing the corner flag. And all he's got to do is go and run into it with the ball. 90th minute, 91st minute. What did he do? Played the ball inside to Bruno into the channel to have a shot at goal. United lose the ball almost immediately. It goes to the left. That's when Bruno loses the ball in the centre of the park again. 91st minute. Oh, no, it's Dan James. Sorry. Dan James commits a foul, gets a yellow card on the other side of the pitch, and West Ham punt it 70 yards. That's just, again, it's just complete stupidity. Marcus needs to run the ball in the corner in the 90th minute and goes, my job is to keep this ball. And when he runs there, Bruno runs with him, Mason runs with him, and they go and play 5-yard keep balls in the corner. Now, that's not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's fault, right? Because there's no way that Ole will be telling him to play that ball inside. Absolutely no fear. No football person says, go and score that second goal in the 90th minute. You say, protect what you've got at that moment. But Marcus plays the ball inside, and as soon as you play it inside, you can lose it. It happened against Everton, and that lost Manchester United 2 points. And today, when that happened, I was really kind of like, a bite in my hand was kind of like, oh my God, we're doing it again. They're the things that worry me, Haider. Not massively worried about whether Scott McTominay is going to turn into Pirlo. It ain't going to happen, so I'm not going to worry about it. I think McTominay can do what Declan Rice did today. Declan Rice is very, very good and will probably get better as a 22-year-old going on. Scott's 2 years older, but scored 7 goals this year. So there's a function there. You know, he does. He's fulfilling certain functions.
Yeah, I think... I do agree with that. I think we know McFred's limitations, so I don't expect anything different from them today. What I saw from them today is what I saw. You know, in games we saw against City, you know, they were fantastic against City, and they did what you wanted them to do. They're disciplined, they worked hard, they broke up play, they got the ball forward quickly. It's games like this we knew, and look, we don't have many options. No Paul Pogba, Matic just has fallen off the cliff. There's a question.
A lot of injuries. There's a lot of injuries at the moment as well at the club. They've got no choices at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll touch on Matic in a bit. There is a good question. We'll do that in a little while.
Yeah,
but there are you know, there are limitations on what we can do in the midfield. However, what I will say though is that at times we are sloppy in possession. We don't move the ball quick enough. And look, these are professional footballers. I'm for you know, for £50 million, and you look at Fred, I don't think sometimes he looks worse than what he is. I don't think he's a great player by any means, but the basics sometimes he's not doing. McTominay at times, but on that point with Rice and McTominay, I think where I like to see McTominay is getting forward more. Like you said, he scored 7 goals. He's got a great shot on him, great technique. He's powerful. He's got an engine, covers a lot of ground. Get him further forward. I think Rice is much better as someone that's going to sit deeper. And that's where I think they probably are a little bit different. But there's quite a few questions, Rob, about Ollie's new deal. We'll touch on this now.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think we should do that. And then we'll also talk about the new director of football and technical director.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's huge news for Manchester United. So let's start with Ollie's new deal. It's a question here by Tabitha. Thoughts on Ollie's new deal? Now, I tweeted today. Let me show where I'm coming from on this. So by no means saying Ollie out, which I think a lot of people may have misconstrued it as. I think that United should be looking to renew Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's contract if he gets top 4. That's what I think. And I think that's fair to do that. That's not me saying to sack him. What I think is wrong, in my opinion, yes, you can have the conversations, but if they're going to give a new contract now, before the season's ended, before we know where we finish in the league, I think that's wrong. And I'll tell you why I think that's wrong, because I think that, yes, he's done a lot of good, but you've got to reward on performance. We haven't hit our objectives yet, so I don't think you should be giving a new contract, because we don't know what's going to happen from now till the end. United are very capable of having a monumental collapse. We could go and lose out of the next 9, we could go and lose 3 or 4, and that's it. We get sucked back into the top 4 race. I just think the club need to be a bit more smart. We gave Jose Mourinho a new contract near the end of that second season. We obviously gave Ollie his full-time contract before the season had ended. I just think the club need to be a little bit more smart and just wait till the season ends and give him a new contract. It's not me saying we shouldn't give him one. I have my own personal views on the manager. You know this, and everyone that listens knows this. But that doesn't stop me from turning around and saying, if he gets second, if he wins a trophy, even if he doesn't, he gets second, he deserves a new contract. And I think that's the right way to do it. I think when we get sentimental or when we rush things, United have done that time and time again. We need to be logical. We need to do this properly. Wait till the end. Wait till we know exactly whether Ollie's hit his objectives or not. And then we look to build for next season.
Well, I tell you this, there's absolutely nothing sentimental about the Glazers or Ed Woodward. So let's just put that straight in the bin. They do not make decisions based on sentiment or Manchester United or anything about the history of the football club. Absolutely not. Not trying to kind of just kill that, but that is the truth. Yeah, they don't do it. I agree with you on half of that and half not. What I will say is this, is that when they made Ole the permanent manager, 2 and a bit years ago, and they triggered that early because United were on such a good run of form, that I think did contribute to United kind of collapsing towards the end of the season. Everyone got a little bit more comfortable. United went on a really horrendous run, missed the top 4 when it looked like they were odds on to get to the top 4. They'd kind of, you had that kind of 20-game run, didn't they, under Ole, where they looked fantastic and ripping teams to shred. And then suddenly that contract's announced and it all falls apart. So there is this kind of maybe some paranoia dilemma that maybe we've all got within us, where we kind of go, is history going to repeat? We give Ole this deal. We're still not 100% sure. Is that what I would do? What I will say to fans is this. It doesn't matter what you would do. It really doesn't. This is a business deal. And if Ole was to fail, would the Glazers sack him because he didn't get top 4? Yes, he'd just get a payoff. That's how it works. So again, I do think that people play these things in their heads with football, like it is a football game, like it's FIFA or something like that. I get a new contract for 2 years on Football Manager, and that means I've got the job. It doesn't stop you getting sacked on Football Manager either. You still get sacked if you get a new contract, and it happens like that in real life. I think fans get a little bit too worked up about it. It's not important. Yeah, he's got his deal because that would have been negotiated with the club. They've announced it today. They probably wanted to do it in a way that, not that it kind of flies underneath the radar, but it's not huge news for Manchester United. Ole's got the team to second. The team have overall, over that year period, say of 12 months, I think performances have improved. There's still weaknesses. He's taken younger players and made them better. He's getting more productivity out of certain players. Luke Shaw is now suddenly a world-class left back. The defense is maybe weaker, but United have scored more goals this year. There's kind of balancing points. But it doesn't really work like that. You don't get to the last day of the season and then the Glazers go, well, right, let's talk about this contract. Football doesn't really work like that. I wouldn't give him a huge deal. He got, I think, a £9 million extension, which I think is
more, yeah.
It's just a bit of paper he signed. And it's like, okay, does not stop people getting sacked. It really doesn't. I think fans believe it does. I think fans go, oh, they've got a contract, I won't pay him off. Manchester United have absolutely showed that they sack people. And even players who are on huge deals like Alexis Sanchez for £500,000 a week, they still pushed that deal off and got rid of the player and paid off a large part of that salary because they had to, because that was what, they make the decision after a year, you go, I'm not doing it anymore. Same with Ole. If we got to the end of the season, say it completely goes as a bust now and he ends up fifth, every chance he gets sacked.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask here, Rob.
We don't know also if there's a severance in it. Yeah, there could be a break clause in it that says if you do not get top 4 at the end of this season, your contract is null and void and we can sack you. That might be in the detail, but I'm speculating. But that's what football clubs will do to protect themselves, because this is business. Businesses protect themselves. So I didn't get too high about it. When I kind of saw it, I commented on it this morning and just said, I think, I don't think Ole's not deserved the contract. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm kind of going, the upside is that if United do carry on, have a good summer, maybe recruit the right players, and Ole continues that trend of recruiting good talent, then there's every chance that United become title contenders next year. And that contract looks good value. You don't then have to kind of give him more money later on down the line because he's actually been more successful.
Fair points. I mean, for me, look, naturally clubs are going to have discussions they're not going to do it on the last day and go, right, okay, let's have our contract discussions. No, we all know that Jadon Sancho, we'd had discussions with him and agreed quite a lot of the terms before we entered into the summer. So I don't think so. I just think that, I mean, Umka's got a question here saying, should there be a change of manager if we don't get top 4? He's asking for our views on that. Look, for me, Rob, top 4, for me personally, shouldn't always be the objective or the ambition, but we know that is for the owners. We know that they care about that 100 million that you get for the Champions League qualification. We know that they're not exactly here thinking about the footballing reasons. If Ole didn't get top 4, for me, if he didn't, you got to look at precedent. Other managers didn't get top 4, and that should be the minimum. And I think if he didn't, he probably would get sacked. And I think that if that was the case, and that's why I was thinking, don't sign the contract now. You can have all the details done, but if he gets, top 4, gets second, whatever it is, then do it at the end of the season, and then we can go into season. Because you can't have a manager going in. It's something that I've obviously discussed on other shows with Kieran. His point is that we can't have a manager going into final year on a contract, because that the players know immediately then, he's not going to be here for the long term. But
I'll just say Kieran is 100% correct. This is how businesses operate. You can't go in there with the manager's own future undecided, because then how can you expect players to play their hearts out for that manager? So I look at it like this, like I just said there, there potentially is a break clause in his contract that none of us know about, because they don't publicize those things. It's all in there. They do it to protect themselves. I think if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't end up in the top 4, there's every chance he gets sacked. Doesn't matter what contract he's got, and I wouldn't be surprised that there is clauses in those contracts for years ahead that say if you're not in the Champions League, that you might say lose 50, 60, 70% of your severance. That's a normal thing in football, that managers sign those deals because it's connected to performance. That's kind of what we want. We want results. The club wants results. We're happy for you to be the manager as long as you get results. It's kind of as basic as that. And the Glazers really don't care about sentiment. They don't look at Ole and kind of stroke him on the head and go, oh, you're our little Ole, you scored that goal in 99. They really don't care about any of that stuff. They are as cold-hearted as it gets in football. So I never look at it like that, where maybe fans, I think, G up the soap opera side and say, oh, this is Glazeronomics and all of this. I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's just business. And, when I do my business for work, I have contracts, I sign them. If I don't fulfill certain criteria, then I lose those rights. I lose that employment. That's how it works. And it's the same in football. Same with footballers, can be on big deals. Mesut Ozil can sign the biggest deal in Arsenal history. And what happens? Mesut Ozil gets sat on the bench, doesn't even play, and is out the football club. So contracts don't mean everything. And it shouldn't mean anything to fans either. I don't think fans should really invest time on wondering whether a contract means someone's going to do better or not. Just judge what you see. You know, if your football club comes fifth, I think there's a question for fans to go, Ole's failed. I think that's honest. If we're here now and we're kind of second in the league and we end up fifth and we're out the Champions League.
Yeah, it's not good.
I think it's a loaded gun. I think it really is a loaded gun, and it's pointing at Ole's head. And then I think people have absolutely got the right to say Ole out, Ole out, Ole out. What we got this morning was people going Ole out because they don't like a contract. That's weird. That's not normal. You don't know what's in that contract, so there's no need to kind of respond to it in that manner. But I agree with Kieran. I think you've got to make sure that your manager's future is secure, because then you can tell your players, right, guys, I want you at this club next year, and we want to do a deal with you, Paul Pogba. So Paul Pogba might be saying, do you know what? I'll sign a deal next year if Ole's here. That might be something that's been talked about. We don't know. To be honest with you, absolutely. Well, we know full well. Yeah. We know full well that Paul Pogba, one of the big points that he's made is that he's really happy playing for Ole. He's really happy stylistically and with the communication and all of that. He's made that quite clear. So if Manchester United want to secure Paul Pogba and keep him, one of the ways of doing that is keeping this manager. So these points. If you want to get Haaland, what do you say to Haaland? You know, you can come and play for the football club for a manager that you know really well, another Norwegian. These things might all be interlinked. We just don't know.
And Kieran has popped up here in the comments, Rob, saying, problem is the contract would get done regardless. Can't have a lame duck manager. Something that myself and Kieran spoke about.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
You know, about him getting an extension. We don't know how long it is. You know, my point still remains, but that's just my opinion. It was never saying you should sack him. It was more to do with the fact that don't announce it now.
I think it's more general about the fan base, though. It's more general about the fan base, mate. You know, it's more how they respond to these things, like their narratives, like they are Twitter trends, you know, and hashtags. You know, if you're going to kind of get invested in all that stuff, at least know what you're talking about. Those things are not really salient. It didn't affect the West Ham result today. I think people can say, oh, you know, I was bored with the game. It wasn't exciting. Those things are valid because it wasn't particularly a great game. But as I said at the start, at the top of the show, it's not really about entertainment at the moment. It's about winning. That's what Ole's paid to do. And they won today. They got over the line. I was worried in that last 10 minutes. I was thinking, is the masterclass going to be about the final 10 minutes where United mess it up? So when Marcus is in the corner and not going to the corner flag, that worries me. It's a red flag straight away. But overall, I think the guys did a good job today. And I think Ole's tactics were absolutely fine.
Yeah, look, we all said we just need to get the victory today, Rob. That's it. Look, we knew I was expecting a performance like this. I'm not surprised one bit. You know,
against a good West Ham team. You know, West Ham have been phenomenal this year, and they only look like they turned up after they went 1-0 down, and I think that really hurt them in the context of the game. But I thought that, you know, the fact that West Ham came and played the game that they did, that's out of respect for Manchester United. Now, we weren't seeing teams respect us maybe in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. They were coming to Old Trafford and beating us and making us look a little bit silly. And there was no respect there. I think today David Moyes looked at that and said, right, I'd rather shut this door and make sure that we're playing a kind of lower block and we're going to frustrate, get to half-time, make it 0-0 and see if we can win the game that way. And they almost did if that had worked out. It didn't quite work out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think teams know that if they do sit back against Man United, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. We can destroy anyone in transition. We did it to Manchester City, who are probably the top side in Europe right now, Rob. And I think teams know that, and there is a bit more respect when you come to Old Trafford. The issue is, as we mentioned earlier on in the podcast, that we still haven't quite got to level where we are comfortable breaking down teams, and we're not quite good enough at it yet. And there's many factors which we've spoken about in the podcast.
More ball players in the next transfer window. Go and buy ball players, and it doesn't have to be ball players in the pivot. It doesn't have to be a ball player to replace Scott McTominay. It has to be ball players everywhere. They've all got to get better in every position, in possession, out of possession with their movement, helping each other, and doing it in a more way, in a kind of progressive way that is Manchester United football. That's what we want to see. We want to see better ball players across the whole of the park.
Agree with that. Rob, let's talk about the director of football and technical director. Correct me if I'm saying his name incorrectly. John Murtagh, is that right?
It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, John Murtagh. I was going to call him John. Look, so there's obviously been a big overreaction, and I did a podcast previously, with Joe and Kieran about this, and we did discuss it in great length, and it was a really good discussion because we broke down the experiences of each man, what their roles are. There's the usual sort of neuroticism, as we've spoken about before, the overreaction. Oh, who are these guys? They're yes men straight away without even clarifying or understanding the roles. I mean, I saw some people saying, oh, Fletcher's got no experience. Well, Darren Fletcher's going to go into negotiations with Matt Judge. It's going to be fantastic to have someone in the negotiation room who's a football man, who can talk to the opposition. Let's say if there's a player there, the opposition there, about the footballing side. Matt Judge is not going to do that. He's a businessman. So, Darren Fletcher's got that role. I actually think it could possibly be a masterstroke. I think it's a very interesting thing. And then you've obviously got Murtagh, who's going to be the director of football. So 23 years of experience in football. He's been at the club for 7 years. He came with David Moyes, was a data scientist at Everton, really is big on the big data analytics side of things, where United have been lagging behind Liverpool, and you've got Leicester City, Manchester City. Look, it's the step in the right direction, isn't it? Ollie's obviously been working with these men now for at least 6 months, I would say, especially Fletcher's come in. Maybe a bit less. So what are your thoughts on this? Because United are finally moving into the modern age with a director of football, a technical director. It's only positive, isn't it? And we can't turn around and judge this now in 6 months even. You've got to wait a couple of years, maybe even 3, 4, 5 years to see the real, see this come to fruition, really, because it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
They're absolutely the correct appointments. Make no doubt about that. Let's kind of discuss why we think they're the correct appointments, or why we are where we are. Manchester United as a football model, not a business model, but football, have been lagging since Fergie left. So when Fergie was at the football club, in many, many ways, he was also the kind of director of football. He was the guy that had the connection with the board, with David Gill. And David Gill had significant football acumen to make decisions. So transfers and recruitment and academy structure and philosophy and all of those things that we talk about on this show, they were all kind of in place from those two guys. That's how it worked. And the Glazers then sat in the back room and didn't really make a lot of decisions. They just reaped the money and the trophies. Fast forward to where we are now. I've been writing for, I think, 4 or 5 years that Manchester United need either a sporting director, which is what they have on the continent, where you have a structure with someone who overlooks the project from a sporting perspective, or you have someone who is a technical director with a kind of director of football, which is the model that we've got. Now, a lot of people were highlighting that Murtagh is very close to Ed Woodward. That's not a bad thing. Why is that? Because Murtagh is a football person, has incredible acumen when it comes to the game, technically, and both in a kind of practical sense of what he's done. With Everton, he was highly successful. He's reshaped Manchester United in the back room at the moment. And I'll say this, if he wasn't already at the football club, this probably wouldn't be happening, because he can actually get in Ed Woodward's ear and in his head because he knows him.
Got a bit of trust there as well, hasn't he?
And he's trusted. Yeah. And he's not just trusted. I think that the whole thing is when they moved away from Mourinho and moved away from maybe the Galactico image that Ed Woodward had for the football club, a lot of that really came down to the failure of Mourinho in that final 6 months, but the way it built up over maybe a year or two, because Woodward had a lot of faith in Mourinho. But I think the wider structure of the football club, the likes of the Murtaghs and the coaches and the kind of people who maybe people don't know their names, they'd lost trust in what Mourinho was trying to do, because Mourinho is out for Mourinho. We know this. He's kind of showing it at Tottenham Hotspur with what his comments were after the game, after losing a derby where he was 1-0 up. So that was an issue. But I think when you look at these guys and the reason why they've been chosen, Murtagh is someone who's already existing within the football club and has done really good work. But let's talk about Darren Fletcher, because I had lots of tweets around the day it all happened, and people were saying to me, he's got no experience. How can he become a technical director? I actually think it's a really, really clever appointment. And it's for this reason, is that Darren Fletcher, no offense to footballers in general, because I don't want to say this, because I know a lot of footballers, but they're not always the cleverest. They're not always the smartest people. Darren Fletcher is a smart cookie. Darren Fletcher knows about business. Darren Fletcher knows about how to get places. Darren Fletcher knows how to be a winner. Certainly, whether it be with restrictive kind of talent as he maybe had as a footballer. But hey, that guy's got plenty of trophies and he worked for every one of them. He knew how it works. I think it's a good idea that you've got a technical director that can talk to prospective signings about the football club. I'm more than happy for Judge to carry on as a negotiator. That's what he is. He's really good at negotiating deals. Anyone that's dealt with him outside of Manchester United have always said the same thing to us, and that he's really good at his job. He can sit there and he can negotiate really good deals.
Rob, one thing I want to add to that, sorry, quickly about Matt Judge. And this is not me protecting the Glazer regime or anything, but there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding that Judge is the one that's turning around and saying, no, for example, with Sancho, it's him that was an issue. At the end of the day, the Glazers have their hands on the purse strings. They're the ones that release the funds. And at the end of the day, people saying, oh, well, Judge is still involved. There's a misunderstanding or misinformation. Judge just negotiates. He doesn't choose he doesn't go and choose the amount that we have in the transfer budget, or he's not the one that's got the overall decision making. He's just going in there and trying to get United the best possible deal as he can.
The man has never had any power at all at Manchester United. He's a negotiator. That's what he is. He's just a director who kind of does that role. He's really good in terms of the legality of contracts and keeping things in order. And that's why he's at the football club. He can do those things for Manchester United going forward. But it's also not a case of, when we talk about signing players, I just imagined this a minute ago and kind of laughed to myself when you were talking about it. Again, people think that the negotiator sits down there at a football club and opposite him is Haaland. And Haaland sits there and goes, sell me Manchester United. And
it happens on FIFA, Rob.
And Matt Judge kind of goes, oh, let me just have a look. Well, we're the biggest club in the world and we want to win everything. And is that all right? That's not how it works. It doesn't work like that. It's just not the world. Now, Darren Fletcher will have, of course, contact with signings and that he will be used for that capacity that's been said. But the person who will get people to the football club is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole talks to every target. Ole is the one that says, this is my vision, come to my team. He was the one that got Cavani to the club. He was the one that got Van der Beek to the football club. And every signing that we've made in that 2-year period, Ole has been 100% hands-on. So you'll have Darren Fletcher who will be this go-between, maybe between the board themselves, who have not got the football experience because they're money men, the Glazers, they're more interested in the NFL, but they own the football club. So they need people in their remit, in their orbit to help with running that football club. And Darren Fletcher will be really, really useful as a young progressive mind who knows what Ole thinks, who knows what the players think, who know the kind of player that we need. And he can help with the recruitment and the structuring that goes with that. It's a clever appointment. I prefer him as a technical director. It was mooted about a year ago, so it's not new. So, it's about a year ago, the first time we heard Darren Fletcher's name and Darren Fletcher connected to the technical director role. So this is not something that United have jumped in suddenly to make fans happy because we've now got a technical director and we're a modern football club. That's not it. A lot of people said to me, why don't you go and get someone who's experienced, someone who's done it?
This is what I wanted to ask.
Someone who did it at Sevilla or Roma or someone who did it. Well, of course, the common one that I got, and I think everyone gets, is why did you not get Van der Sar? Because Van der Sar's a director. Well, Van der Sar's not a technical director. He's a CEO who runs the business at Ajax. Exactly. So they all work together because that's the idea, is that you have a board where you have different skill sets. You work together and you kind of build your football club that way. Manchester United need more of that, and that has now been put in place. Ed Woodward will still make ultimate decisions as a kind of not chairman of the board, but that is his role as a kind of CEO figure, as an executive vice chairman. And that's his role to kind of steer the ship as the whole behemoth of Manchester United as a business. That's his role to try and do that. So he'll be the guy talking about future endeavours in the new Champions League, whether United leave the Premier League to join a European Super League. That's the kind of vision that he has. That's his job. He's not going to sit there and go, I don't know if I like Jadon Sancho or not. That's not his job. He doesn't care about those things. What his job is to make sure it all balances and that he can work with the football people at the football club. The fact that they have appointed these people tell you what these businessmen are thinking about. And that is that they realise that they've made mistakes since Fergie left. We have thrown it down their throats and told them over and over again as the press, we've held them to account, we've told them what they've done wrong. And it's great. They're actually doing something about it. And I think the appointments are your middle ground. So if it all fails, Haider, in 2 years' time, and we're talking about Ole's gone and that these two guys haven't done their roles, what happens to them? They get sacked.
Yeah. But that's what I wanted to say, Rob. You make a good point. Look, I think the problem is with the fan base, and I can understand this, is that we've got owners. You see, obviously, with the Super Bowl, there's been a few questions. Are they going to care as much about United as they do Tampa? They don't care about United like they do Tampa. We are a cash cow, and I think the problem is, Rob, that fans are so hurt, and I understand this. And the way that they haven't spoken to the fans, 15 years since they own the club, the amount they've taken out, the debt, all these sort of things, fans are really struggling to trust them. And I think when you look at it, how much money has been wasted, over $1 billion that's been wasted. For me, I think that's what's shaken them a bit, that they've turned around and thought. And I do think Ollie's got a big input in this. I think Murto in there and, Flexible are coming. I think even Nicky Butt, who's come in and completely revamped the academy, they've all worked internally. And I think they've all come together and turned around and said, we need this in place. So I think people need to take a step back and actually think of this in a positive slant. There's too many that are looking at this negatively. They're thinking, oh, well, they're just going to be yes men. They're internal appointments. It's just, it smacks to me, Rob, of, real paranoia. It's quite odd for me. And like you said, middle ground, because I also think as well, like Luis Campos, one of the best in the business. He's always spoken about Man United a lot. But something that we discussed the other night regarding this was that we don't have a structure in place. This is the first ever director of football we're having, first ever technical director. You don't necessarily want to go and get the big name out there and it to fall flat. You need to try it. You need to build it for a few years, build a structure, see what works, see what doesn't. And then you never know, maybe 2-3 years of time when United are ready to bring in, let's say it doesn't work, someone a little bit better, someone with more experience, with more connections. You do that, and then you've already got the structure in place to improve upon.
They've been talking about directors of football for 2 or 3 years, Manchester United. So it's not a new thing. And they've been actively seeking out candidates for a long time, talking to people. I think what they would have found is that one of the things that Ed Woodward did decide on, and this is a stylistic and philosophical decision, is that he's a Manchester United fan. People have to remember that as well. Ed Woodward is a Manchester United fan, has been his whole... Now, this is the whole thing about people were like, is he a Liverpool fan? Is he a United fan from the the Northwest and family, and where's his family from, and all of these things. I think that Ed Woodward wants Manchester United to be successful because Ed Woodward loves a bit of the whole ego thing. Yeah, I think he enjoys the football club that he runs. He enjoys his position, and he enjoys that Manchester United are this big super club. He wants it to thrive for those reasons. However, the Glazers don't care about the football club in that way. The Glazers run businesses. So, you just said that they care about their NFL franchise more than Manchester United. I would dispute that. I think what they care about most is their bank balances. That's all it is. They're business people. And they know that if they go and get Brady at Tampa Bay, they might win a Super Bowl. What happened? They won a Super Bowl. That's how the NFL works. There's all about cap space in the NFL as well. So that's also how a business works, whereas that doesn't exist in football. So it's a different playing field in that you can play these unlimited wages that can eat into your profits. And it's harder to win in football than it might well be in the NFL because of the cap space. If you're good at NFL, you're going to win the Super Bowl. You can do it. You can find a way. Whereas in football, there's more variables because it's kind of much more free market, open sporting arena. What we'll say is this. I think when you look at the structure now of the business and how they'll go forward, when they have these board meetings, there is now at least a segmentation as to what people do. And that wasn't there in the last 7 or 8 years. People didn't know who were accountable. Now, as a United fan, I really do not want to hear anything from the Glazers. I don't want them to come out and talk to us. Why? We know why they're at the football club. I'm not interested in owners. Owners are only interesting when they're kind of doing something right or wrong and you kind of sit on which side of the fence you prefer. You could be like FSG, go to Liverpool and say that, you're going to do it this way. We did it with the Red Sox, so we're going to take that and restructure it as we did with Liverpool. And what happens? You become successful. That's not really what the Glazers are trying to do. But I tell you what, if Man United won the Premier League in the next year or two, the Glazers would be at Old Trafford holding that trophy, saying, look at us, because it's all about image and about being able to sell all of their brands. They love that in the NFL, that was it Joel got to pick up the trophy, and Joel Glazer, because that's what they do. It's an ownership model in America of how that balanced out, that owners have much more of an input into structure.
I don't remember the Glazers ever being on the field when United won trophies on Sir Alex.
No, because they wouldn't have been allowed to in those days. In those days, that wasn't a thing. But now we're in a new world, aren't we? Football's changed, and owners have become higher profile in football. There was a time we didn't know any of the owners. You really didn't. Like, if you looked at the top 10 teams in the Premier League 20 years ago, no one knew any of the owners. You might have known one or two or three big chairmen who had big personalities, but in general, you didn't know about consortiums. You didn't know about financing. You didn't know about debt. We're now experts on debt because of what the Glazers had done to United, but no one had a clue about what the debt figure was when Martin Edwards ran the football club. No one knew. It just wasn't a thing. So we may be a little bit more educated on that, but you chose the right word there, paranoia. I think fans are completely paranoid about a lot of this stuff because
I understand it, though, Rob.
I understand it, but I also people need to take a step back and look at themselves on it and say, is this what I do it for? Do I want to do it to be upset about this family from Tampa Bay, signing new contracts with NFL players? Not really. So judge what you can see, what you can sing for. If you go and pay your ticket and you sing for your team and they don't give it to you, then you can complain about that. I agree with that. But there's lots of stuff that I think fans, again, think that they have some technical input into these things. They don't really. Businesses run certain ways for certain reasons. It is a big positive that Manchester United have identified that they've been doing it wrong at board level for the last few years. And that might have impacted the managers that have failed after Sir Alex, including Moyes. Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, none of them got it right. But you can say safely that the board structure probably didn't help those guys. Just throwing money at these managers wasn't a solution. The solution is to actually have a strong football project with correct recruitment, not always superstar based, but actually building your team position by position. That's how you win championships.
Yeah, good point. Rob, quickly, we'll just touch on this as well before we end. It's a bit of a 2 or 3 parter. It's more of a statement rather than a question, but this is from Gerard here. And Gerard's saying, these appointments for me makes me think we are getting ready to not spend a lot in the summer. This is so Woodward doesn't get the flack now. And a third part to it, I think we're going to have an underwhelming summer. I mean, let's touch on this. I am doing a Glazer podcast, with Kieran and Joe, so we'll touch on that. But I do want to talk about this, with the finances the way they are, and you've seen as well they've sold shares, and none of that money is going to go towards the club. I believe it's 70 to 100 million or something like that. I mean, look, we're going to have to. Look, I'm being completely honest with you. We're going to have to temper our expectations. I don't expect United to go out and spend as much as people think they're going to spend. I think possibly Sancho might happen, but after that, you're looking at maybe one or two more signings, not necessarily high profile. And that's, look, we know the issues with the Glazers, but that's the reality as well of what's happened in terms of our finances. They weren't pretty when we saw them last. 100 million off the bottom line with no match day revenue. I mean, I don't necessarily think that these appointments are a way to, sort of mask over and let others take the flak. I don't think so at all. I think that it's just a situation we are in with COVID, and United are not going to be able to spend as much as they want.
Yeah, I don't think that these appointments have got anything to do with COVID or finances. I really, really don't. I just think that they've realised that they've got it wrong for a while, and then now to try to correct that. So this is a kind of soft way of correcting it, keeping people who are at the football club, people they know, people that they trust. You've got to look at it that way as well, that they don't want external forces coming into the football team that will mess up their balance as a business. So you have to understand that, whether we respect it or not. I think when you look at the summer and what's to come, there is no doubt that if Manchester United want to progress, that they will have to make signings. What fans call excitement, or kind of what floats their boat and all of that, it's just as fragmented as what we're saying here about whether something is right or wrong. Now, I've worked on 21 transfer windows now. I'm that old. Yeah. And the reason why the transfer window is such a big business when it comes to the industry, when it comes to the media, is because the guys that watch this show, people that we tweet to, and people that come, speak to us, it's about the whole package of football, isn't it? And transfers is a big part of that. But sometimes I think, I'm not making excuses for the Glazers at all, but they've gone out and spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of footballers and got it wrong. So I think the facts is there, the proof is in the pudding. It's not really always about just spending lots of money. It's about getting the right players. So when we had those 4 or 5 transfers coming in the last window, what did everyone say, Haider? It's not a good enough window. It's poor. It's not going to work. United won't get top 4. United will be 6. People telling me United might get 8th, 9th, 10th. Arsenal are stronger than United. Tottenham are stronger than United. Chelsea have got £300 million worth of talent ready to go. Frank Lampard's going to be a generational coach. Here we are now, nearly a year on. No Frank Lampard. He's gone. Those players are not doing anything at Chelsea. Arsenal are a mid-table team who are celebrating their big victory tonight, obviously over Tottenham. Tottenham have regressed massively after losing Pochettino, now with Mourinho. Manchester United's competitors have not got better. Liverpool are worse. The only team that's got better is Man City, and you could say Leicester and us. We have improved to where we were a year ago. Now, that's not to say it's perfect. That's not to say that Ole hasn't got a hell of a lot of work to do. He really, really has. There's tons still to fix. We just talk about here, wouldn't it be nice if our players could pass a football? That's quite important. They need to fix that. And they need to find the correct players that can do those things. But they're not always Sanchos. They're not always Haalands. They're the players we like because they're the players that we've talked about a lot and we know what they are. But it still doesn't mean that you could drop them straight into your structure and that it's fixed. Look at Chelsea, Kai Havertz, look at Werner. I'd have taken Havertz like that. I'd have taken Werner like that. I'd have gone, I want them at Man United. And if they'd failed at Man United, we'd all be now sitting here going, what's happened to these 2 players? Sack the manager, do this, do that, the other. It does. My point is, it doesn't always work out. It doesn't. So I'm happy to wait. Let's see what happens. I do trust that Fletcher and Murto will want to make sure that there are signings coming in because it reflects on them. That's their job, to make sure that that's ticking over. And I'm happy to see the Ahmeds get chances. I'm happy to see Mason get more chances through the middle. It doesn't mean that just because we do need signings that they've got to be in those classical positions that we're always talking about. Sometimes it's just about finding the right players that make you better and make sure that you don't lose as often, that you don't draw as often, and that you're a little bit more effective. Liverpool are the proof of that. When Liverpool went and bought Southampton, which is kind of what they did for a few seasons, they bought Southampton players and everyone joked and said, oh, what are you, Southampton, all feeder clubs and all of this. Liverpool went on and won the Champions League and the Premier League. It doesn't have to be players from that echelon that we're obsessed with, that the transfer market constantly swirls around as information. That's an industry on its own. What's important is that Manchester United keep improving, keep strengthening the squad. And I've got no doubt, I think that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will do.
Rob, as this comment says here, Ndidi, Tielemans, Fofana, Castagna, and Pereira, all to Leicester. All, they weren't all star names. And that's what United need to do. And that's what I did say the other day. I said that, for example, Fofana has been such a good signing for Leicester. 30 million, yes. It was fairly steep, but for the potential, you think about how good the player can be. Look, it's going to look like a bargain.
Another thing fans have to, I know again, this is kind of going against the grain, but again, fans talk about transfer fees like it's their pocket with all the cash in it. It doesn't work like that. Again, I'm not really interested in transfer fees per se. If you've got Sancho for 108 million or 88 million, I don't care. Just sign him. That's what I care about. Bring him to the football club, put him in red, let's see him on the pitch. But we have to appreciate that the owners do care and that the owners will look at those numbers and they will try and balance the books because that's how all businesses work. If I was them, that's what I would be doing. There's no doubt about it, whether I love Manchester United or not. And that's why people who love football clubs generally shouldn't run them. Fans shouldn't run football clubs because they'll make bad decisions because it's all about the heart. But I just think that United just need to go and get the right players. I looked at Ahmed in that game the other day, and I think we should actually just touch on him before we go. I looked at that game. He obviously scored, didn't he, against AC Milan. Bit of a bum deal in the end with Man United, how they drew that game. They should have obviously won it. They gave AC Milan too much. But I think what was great about seeing him in that game on that pitch with Ahmed was that you can tell he's got something. That goal he scored, people go, oh, that's all he could do. It was a back. No, that was a clever goal. He read that. He turned his body. He swiveled. He
And
made
the run
sure
as
he
well, Rob, to get into that position.
Absolutely. That's what I liked. I thought, here we go. It's a guy running the channel who already knows at 18 what to do. It's kind of natural. So I'm not saying he is the answer to everything, but I look at that and I think, let's run it. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it goes. I'd like to see him get more minutes this year. We've seen that Shortier's come through, that he's a player now on the edge. We know that Medjbrie's close, that we've got other players that might actually step into the breach that are not from outside the football club. But of course, fans want to get excited about new faces, new signings. United do need new faces, but I'm also just as excited about what we've already got in the team.
Yeah, it's something I did want to touch on as well. As sort of the last word, Rob, for me, it's been echoed in the comments as well. But I do want to say that I don't want United to go and sign the Galacticos of the world. I want United to go and sign the players that are going to improve them, that are going to fit the system, that are going to be smart signings. I'm sick and tired of the Di Marias and the Falcaos, and I really liked Falcao. But, these sort of signings, we need to be thinking more with here. You don't need to go and spend 50 million a pop every time, or, 50, 60, 70 million. You can go and pick up good players for 30 million and develop them. And like you said, look, Medjugorje is someone that's excited me. I think he's going to be really special. Ahmad looks brilliant. Shoretire looks brilliant. There's some really good youngsters coming through. United just need to supplement that with smart signings. They need to be clever in the market, especially when the money isn't exactly flowing. It's not going to be in. I get frustrated with the owners as much as anyone, but we are in COVID times. I'm not expecting many teams to be going and spending 300 million again. Maybe they will, the cities of the world, but I don't expect us to be doing that. Rob, any final words before we go?
I just think that all the things we've talked about today, we've talked about many different factors of Manchester United and the project and Ole's contract and all of those things, the board structure. I try and look at those things, obviously from a technical sense as a journalist, but also as a fan. And I, as a fan, I am happy. I don't place myself in that Twitter sphere where there's this constant up and down. One of the things I tweeted, and I'll leave just as the last word, 7 days ago, we were beating Manchester City. 7 days ago, not 7 years ago, not 7 months ago, 7 days ago. And it has almost been forgotten like that. Now, quite a few of the replies said to me, well, you don't get a trophy for beating Manchester City. But the truth is that Manchester City are the yardstick. Yeah, not us. We're not the yardstick. We're a football club that's won lots of things over the years, but the team to catch is the team in blue. That's the team we want to kind of emulate at the moment. We want to catch them and overtake them. Now, Liverpool have had a bad year. We caught them. We overtook them. They're struggling themselves. They've got their own problems. But it doesn't really matter about trophies as it stands with the project. So if you go and win the FA Cup this year, nice day out. It doesn't mean anything. Someone said to me again today, Mourinho might win the League Cup. That will make him better than Pochettino. People actually believe this rubbish, that's how it works.
Nonsense, Rob. Nonsense.
It doesn't. It's crazy, but that's how people think. So that's football, isn't it? But my point is this. I think Ole, whether you like him or not, whether you like his style of football or not, he plays football the way I think Manchester United needs to play at the moment. He's going in the correct direction. It isn't always pretty, but he needs extra players and those young players to come through to up the technical levels. And that is what I want to see with Manchester United now in the next, say, 6 months. I want to see maybe 2 or 3 technical players come into the football club who can be bona fide starters, but are also part of the rotation and become important players. You need to go and find your Dennis Irwins. Yeah, you need to go and find players like that who come in, who you don't really see in a game, but they give you 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every week, and they never give you a bad game. Those are the kind of players that get you to a title. Go and look at that Liverpool squad, and that's how Liverpool did it. It wasn't Salah, it wasn't Firmino, it wasn't Mane. Yeah, they're the glory guys.
Yeah.
It's the guys in the kind of trenches, the ones who are going to dig those trenches and kind of stay in there and look after the team and be brave. Manchester United need a little bit more bravery, but more than anything, they need technicalities, kind of technicians who can push that technicality level. That's what's really, really important. That's what I see missing week to week. It's not effort. It's not endeavor. They've got all of those things at times. Sometimes they haven't got a brain, and you see that as a switch off. But it's not about desire. It's more about I'm going to be aggressive today and I'm going to be technical. And if you can be those two things week in, week out, generally you'll win 9 out of 10 games. Generally.
Yeah, well said, Rob. I do think as well trophies do need to start coming as well. I think
I only want one trophy. I want the Premier League. The rest of it is. Do you know what? You something about the League Cup and the FA Cup. Go and eat your frosties out of them. Yeah, they're just posh bowls. At the end of the day, the thing that proves that you are doing the right job is over those 36 games in the Premier League. It's the only truth. You know, the rest of it can be luck. You can win cups with luck. It happens. Yeah, United used to be very lucky in the 80s. They'd win a cup and you'd go, well, we're terrible, but we won a cup. Doesn't mean anything. If you win the Premier League, it proves everything.
That's brilliant. You can eat your frosties out of the posh bowl.
It's just a posh bowl. It is. It's like the League Cup. Do you think Mourinho, like if Mourinho wins it, is he going to lift that League Cup and go, I am justified? Look, I won the League Cup. He'll say it, but he isn't. He won't feel it. He's just lobbing it in the bin. He's won a few. He doesn't care. You know, Pep doesn't care about the League Cup. No, the best managers don't care about the minor trophies. The only people who care about them are the bragging rights with fans because, we won an FA Cup. You know, we talked about Arsenal just a minute ago. What did they win last year? What did they win last year? Your brother's an Arsenal fan. Your brother's an Arsenal fan. Do you think your brother sat there thinking about the FA Cup now?
No, mate, he wishes he was mate. He wishes he was playing Champions League.
Of course he does. He wants Champions League and he wants his team to compete for the Premier League. That is the all-encompassing truth with football. That's what your team, if you're a big club, that's what you want to win is your league because that proves that you're the best. The other bits, they're nice, they're days out, but they're nothing. They don't really mean a lot.
Fun days out, Rob. They are good days out.
Fun days out. Nice to win them. Nice to win them when you get there. But ultimately, you won't be thinking about them 3 days later. It will be gone. It will be out your head. And the league is what means everything. Beating West Ham today means more to me today than beating AC Milan on Thursday. 100%. I want to beat AC Milan, of course, because we're in that part of the competition and we want to get through. But 3 points against West Ham, so much more important to me.
Well said. Guys, thank you so much for all your great contribution, all your questions, all your comments. Thank you so much. You, the guys that make this show so brilliant. Please, please, please spread the word. Try and retweet if you can. You know, like, subscribe. Let everybody know about the masterclass. You know,
we need you to support us. We need you. We need you guys, definitely.
Absolutely. You are the reason why, you know, we're able to put out great content, all your interaction, all your comments. It's been fantastic. As always, much appreciated. So make sure you go and spread the word about the masterclass. And you can also find the masterclass on so many different platforms. At the bottom, you can see Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Periscope, which is on Twitter. You've got YouTube, Instagram, Twitch as well, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts now as well. And you can also find us on Sports Social. This is the first UK's dedicated sports podcast network. You can find the podcast there on www.sport-social.co.uk. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice week, and we will see you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.